because I remember one point that I got was when it came to drilling, I was pointing at students like this. And he was saying, look, it was good drilling, but like when you're putting, use an open palm,
Yeah.
and it's much more inviting and less, confronting sort of thing.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Aydin Ismailpour, a certified English language teacher based in Baku, Azerbaijan. As you know, CELTA is one of the most prestigious teaching qualifications out there, and it's rather hard to get a Pass A or Pass B. I did my CELTA back in 2022, and I managed to get a Pass B, which is quite rewarding. However, in today's video, I'm going to interview Nick from Australia, who actually got a Pass A in the CELTA course. And I really can't wait to hear his suggestions and his experience during the course. And I hope his words will be great inspiration to those of you who like to actually pass this CELTA course. Let's dive in. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you doing, Aiden?
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming on this interview, presumably helping so many CELTA candidates out there who are watching you now, because CELTA is a very prestigious certificate and people just want to have it, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got Pass A, oh gosh, it's mind blowing. And as you know, I received Pass B, and like people think of me very highly. But then when I saw your Pass A, I definitely wanted to interview you. But
Yeah.
before we get to that, we'd like to know you. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, as you know, my name is Nick. Um, I have been teaching for not that long. As you know, I recently did my CELTA. But I'm a very musical person. I love talking to people. I love building rapport and seeing the connections between different people, especially with students, of course. That's one of the most interesting things about the job, is seeing the different dynamics you can have and the different connections you can form in a class. As I said, I love music. I've played a couple of different instruments, bagpipes for 15 years, guitar for 3. I'm a former software engineer. I used to work in the healthcare industry for about 7 years. So I've had a bit of a journey in trying lots of different things.
Wow, wow. So, are you currently working as a software engineer, or you completely quitted that job?
I've more or less stopped. I haven't worked in the software engineering industry for about a year and a half now, or thereabouts. It was truly enjoyable, but it's one of those industries where there's a lot of give and a lot of
Mm,
take, and uh, you have to give more, give quite a
mm,
lot
okay,
in terms of your
okay.
work-life balance.
That's true. That's true. And what motivated you to take CELTA?
Well, I think the thing that motivated me to take the CELTA was, I mean, obviously it's a very highly accredited course you can do. And I mean, with my previous experience with teaching was I went to Cambodia at some point in my travels, and I volunteered at a small little rural school, very, very small, like no technology whatsoever, all,
Oh my.
yeah, yeah. And that's actually sort of where I got my sort of passion for teaching. Actually, sort of tried a little bit and realized, I'm actually pretty decent at this. And I mean, I even remember the first class I walked out of, when that feeling you get when they're all walking out. Students all have smiles on their faces, and you feel like they've actually learned something, and you're like, yes,
Yeah.
I've made a
Yes.
difference in someone else's life. It's a very warm feeling. So um, after I did that volunteering, I sort of, okay, maybe I want to get into some English teaching, and I was
Mm-hmm.
sort of looking up different courses. And as it turns out, one of my friends who's been an English teacher for about 10 years, he did the CELTA, and he was telling me about it, and he effectively convinced me that it was one of the best courses you can do to prepare for actually being a teacher, uh, especially with all of
Wow.
the teaching practice that you actually do. I mean, you're not just sort of spending hours learning English and grammatical structures and preparation for being a teacher, actually practicing the skill of teaching, which I feel is invaluable.
Yes, the practical side of CELTA is like no other teaching courses, because from the day one they force you to have your TPs and and it's a very rewarding experience. Yes. And
Yeah.
why did you choose CELTA specifically? Why not something different, a different teaching qualification, let's say?
It really was the teaching practice that appealed to me. Like, I mean, if I'm being honest, I would always, and I think most teachers are like this, when you come into the industry, you're always more leaning towards, oh, I would prefer to teach adults because, kids come with their own set of challenges and it's something to actually, it's an acquired skill to be teaching children. So I was a little bit that way. And of course, CELTA is a little bit more catered towards adults. I think the A in CELTA actually stands for adults.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it was especially that teaching practice that did it for me. Like I wanted a course where I was actually going to be put on the spot, thrown in the deep end, so to speak, and actually, you know, do some teaching practice before I actually go out into the real world and start teaching in the classroom.
Okay. And how about the most challenging part of the course? What do you think was pushing you to your limits?
I mean, it really came down to for me, the sheer quantity of work that we needed to do. I mean, yes, it was always very uh, challenging to be taking on all this advice. You're getting advice left, right, and center. Your tutors are there, and if you're at a good place, you'll have great tutors, but they're giving you advice constantly. And
Yes.
the most challenging part about it is actually on the fly while you're doing this, take that advice, internalize it, understand it, and adjust your teaching technique effectively. And
Oh,
it is quite challenging, especially when you start mixing in all the assignments that are going in at the same
yes.
time and
Oh,
whatnot.
those assignments,
Ah,
gosh.
I can actually remember there was one particular weekend where in the space of like 2 days I had to plan do for some reason there was a mix up with the days. So I had two TPs in a row, and on that same
Two
weekend,
TPs in a row?
I think they did something funny with the days, and it got a bit mixed up. And
Oh
um,
my God.
they were good about it. They were very nice. Thankfully, it was one of the early ones, but this one particular weekend, I had like two TPs I was trying to plan and finishing assignment three at the same time. And I think I mean, if you're doing the CELTA, you have to be prepared to lose a little bit of sleep. There was definitely at least a couple of days where I was sort of up until the wee hours of the morning. Of
Yeah.
course, it depends on how much like effort you want to be putting into this. Of course, like you want to strive to do your best as well, but some people need to balance their lives in different ways. And so for me in particular, I thought it's going to be 1 month. I'm just going to put an absolute slog in and nearly kill myself doing it. But if I'm being completely honest, it was my friend who did it 10 years ago. He told me he got a pass B, and of course, I kind of wanted to get the pass A, so I just sort of rub it in his face,
Oh,
just a little bit. Not that I'm that kind of
the
person, but
competitive side of yours pushed you.
a little bit, yeah. It was a good motivating factor, just for fun. Like I'm not usually a
Yeah.
competitive, in your face person.
I'll admit that CELTA is a demanding course because I remember from 3 years ago when I was like 25 at the time,
Mm.
I I did the same. Like I locked up myself at home, and the two instances that I actually went out were my friends' weddings.
So you had friends' weddings while you were doing the CELTA.
Yes, yes. I because I never left home. I was all the time at home. 2 days that I actually went out were the
Mm.
days when my friend had a wedding. That's it. And I,
Mm.
I started my preparation from the early morning. Then I did the TPs. Then those trainings. Then when trainings finished, I had my dinner and then started preparing the next TP. Right, it was,
Ah,
and I think that dedication actually got me CELTA Pass B. And as you know, I'm a non-native speaker. So for a non-native speaker who um, like gets CELTA Pass B, it's like you are the very very good one because like
oh,
most native
absolutely.
speakers can't get it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I remember those days. There were some very very long nights, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed,
Exactly.
that is what comes down in one of the challenges, just the sheer quantity of work. And as you said, they don't really wait long; they just throw you right into it.
Mm. And what would you say that actually helped you get a Pass A?
What would I say helped me get a pass A? I think probably the the thing you can really do best is when you're looking at your teachers, like your tutors, from day
Hmm.
one. I think day one they actually give you like a demo teaching
Yes, yes,
session with one of the
they do
tutors.
have that demo. Yes,
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I would do is just be prepared for that. Be ready with your notebook and pen because it's sort of like you get in there and you're sort of like, okay, it's just the start of the course. They're not going to expect much. And you're sort of relaxed about it. But from day one, you need to start looking at these tutors, these teachers, who, by the way, should have, you know, a plethora of years of experience, and
mm.
watch what they're doing and actually notice how they're drilling people, how they're eliciting answers from the class, how they're actually doing general classroom management. Like, just start taking notes at all times,
Mm.
um, whenever you can. And then, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's quite standard that throughout the CELTA you have to change to a different group of learners halfway through.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. After 2 weeks, I started with B1, B2 level. Then they changed me to A2, B1 level
Interesting. Yeah,
student. Yes, yes,
I had to do intermediate first, and then I went up then to the advanced class. But when we got to that advanced class, and in that new class is where you get another demonstration from one of the tutors, at least.
exactly. Yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. From that first class, and actually in the first one, do it as well. But in both classes, in the second one especially, I started just writing. There were about 13 students. Started just writing down every single student's name
Yeah.
because for me personally, I think one of the number one things you can do to build rapport in any class is to learn the names and learn them quickly. Um,
Yes.
as I was observing all the other student teachers TPs, one of the biggest things that I think let them down a bit was they had to keep asking for names. And the thing is, you're not going to have time, or even you're in an assessment environment, so you're not going to feel comfortable thinking in your head, okay, commit that to memory, commit that to memory. You're thinking about the CCQs you want to ask, the techniques you're about
Yes.
to use, what you're about to go into next. You're stressed. The examiner's taking notes. Like, learn the names in advance, and you'll
Yeah.
thank yourself so much because automatically, it's so surprising. You can see the look of surprise in a student's eye when you just look at them and you say, um, Rutger, what do you think? And it's like your
Mm.
first lesson. She's like, how does he know my name? Well, this guy actually cares. He actually wants
Yes.
to teach me something, and he
Yes.
cares about my learning. It sends a huge message because rapport and like communication and building connections with your students is part of the CELTA. There is, I think, actually even an explicit assessment criteria around that, and
Yes.
learning names is just an easy way to get started with it at least.
Build that rapport. Yeah, I remember we were seven teacher candidates in the group, and three of them got pass B. And those who got pass B actually had very good relationship with the students. Students actually loved those candidates more than the others, and I think that should be one of the secret ingredients to getting a higher degree in CELTA because they actually look for it and they see that okay, these guys are loved, these guys are respected, these guys have better control of the classroom. And I did my CELTA online, and
Mm,
sometimes online can be a little bit more challenging because you
definitely.
need to yes build that rapport through a webcam, which is not the same as you do it in a live session. And
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Like the amount of like emotion you can convey through body motions and being animated and creating a good environment, it's quite a lot. There is quite a challenge to teaching online. I've always felt that.
yes, yes.
Mm.
And I would like to ask, um, what was the biggest teaching insight or technique that you gained from CELTA? Like, you think that, yes, CELTA gave that to you and it completely changed the way you teach English now?
Mm. Well, let me think for a second because the thing is, CELTA teaches a lot of different techniques, and they're all
Yes.
remarkably useful in their own way. I think for me personally, what I saw in my tutors that I very much wanted to emulate was the ability to handle emergent vocabulary. Because at the end of the day, like, a lot of people, anyone can sort of plan a lesson and, analyze the language and look at the words and your collocations and pre-prepare all your CCQs and how you want to do it. But I think it really does take a truly talented teacher to be able to do these things on the fly. Now, admittedly, a lot of that comes from experience,
Hmm.
but it is being able to have that calm presence to see, okay, there's an emergent word, emergent vocabulary coming up. What do I need to do? Obviously, clarify meaning, and how am I going to do that on the fly? The
Yes.
ability to choose the appropriate sort of technique for whatever we're trying to clarify the meaning for is remarkable, because for some things, obviously, using like CCQs and or realia, for example, is going to be far more appropriate than trying to draw a picture. Like, imagine if you were trying to explain the word, I don't know, destiny or something like that, and you're trying to draw destiny. Like, it turns into a game of Pictionary almost. So you've got those impossibly hard words to like
Mm.
draw. Whereas something more like realia based, or more, storytelling using a bit of realia or something like that, would
Yes.
probably maybe be more appropriate.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
One particular technique that I actually really quite liked was the way in which my tutors were drilling. So they were doing lots and lots of different kinds of drilling. Um, but the thing is, you can turn it into something that's quite fun, right? Like, one particular tutor would go, all right, this half of the class, and then he'd sort of break it down, and then like one of them they'd have like a difficult word like disaster, and like you
Mm.
drill them a little bit, and then you go disaster, 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 and they'd all have a little laugh at, like, the absurdity of trying to say that 3 times quickly for a non-native speaker. Well, even for a
Mhm.
native speaker, that's quite difficult. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's just all about creating that sort of vibe and that energy within the
Yeah.
class that keeps people engaged. Like, when you have people engaged, then you've got them in your hand. Like, they're putty in your hands, in the sense you can steer their teaching in the right direction.
That's true. That's true. Yes. And how about confidence? Do you think CELTA is a confidence booster for a teacher? Particularly in your case, how confident did you become after doing your CELTA? Like, let me speak on my behalf. Well, after CELTA, I actually have become one of the most popular teachers in the country. Not only because I got my CELTA, but because I got it with Pass B, which is
Mm,
something challenging even for native speakers, right?
definitely.
And that gave me um, really good popularity in the market. And I started referring myself. Well, I know it may sound like bragging, but it's the truth. I started feeling like a real professional. Like, oh yes, I've done Cambridge CELTA and I got Pass B. So I felt really confident. And how about you? Like you got Pass A, which is just 5% of the all candidates worldwide, right? Like it's top. Like Pass B is already top, but Pass A is on top of top. And how did it feel to get that, first letter of the alphabet?
I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting in my Spanish class, because I'm learning Spanish in Barcelona right now,
Okay.
and I was sitting in my class, and it was Spanish. And now, I'm usually a very attentive student as a language learner. I'm usually very engaged, but we knew the results were coming out, so I was sort of checking the phone. And I think in the middle of the class, my heart held as I scrolled down to the letter, and then I saw it, and I just went, "Woo!" Inside the class, and the teacher sort of looks at me, and she's like, uh, "Todo bien, Nick?" And I was like,
Oh
"Sí,
my.
sí." But coming back to your question about the confidence, yeah, it is remarkable. Like, you walk out of CELTA, and I think this is the feeling. Like, regardless of what grade you get, you walk out of the CELTA, and you can think to yourself, "I am qualified." Like, I
Yes.
know when I was doing my volunteering. Now, admittedly, I did talk to my friend of 10 years who was a teacher at the time, and he gave me like a few little tips. But it would have been like 1% of what the CELTA represented. But while I was doing that volunteering in Cambodia, I remember I was very underconfident. I was just going by the book, and like doing the best I could, and like I didn't really have any sense of what I was doing. I was still doing good classes, and still kids were having a great time, but at the same time, there wasn't that surety that I knew what I was doing. Walking out of
Mm.
the CELTA it's a very different experience. You know you've been trained. You know you've got these skills that are available to you, and you feel far more confident like applying for jobs and being able to say, yes, I can definitely, I can do this.
Yes.
In relation to getting a Pass A, it felt pretty good. And yes, I did call my friend and I just, yeah, I was just like, oh, yeah. So I ended up getting a Pass A, and
Oh my
he had a good laugh. He had a good laugh. He was like, oh, I knew you could do it, buddy. He tried very, very hard as well. But I don't know. The thing is about the marking criteria for it, it's very difficult because you've got those 3 or 4 bands, and as soon as you go down one in your band, that's the best grade you can get. Even if you've got all 3 other categories in Pass A, if you get one thing in Pass B, that's the highest result you can get.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why it's quite difficult to get a Pass A because like I remember with my tutor we were going over this assessment criteria, but it was a very long list of, I don't know, items that they were checking. And interestingly, I graded myself A in most of the items, and she was a little bit surprised. She said, like, even, and she told me that she had in her entire career just 4 Pass A's.
wow.
Uh, yes, and she told me that even the strongest Pass A in her career didn't assess himself as well as I did. I mean, like as optimistic as I did. I said, well, I just see myself a good teacher. Yes,
Yeah, I
and this
mean,
is so long.
yeah. I remember like because you get to the halfway mark and they ask you to self-assess yourself, right? And you have to
Yes,
put like
exactly, exactly. They go
satisfactory
over
or above
that.
satisfactory and
Yes,
everything like that. And I remember thinking like there was some stuff that I was pretty confident with. I was like, but I was going to put like quite high for a few of them. And then I was like, no, look, be a bit more realistic. Don't be, because at the same time, like, you're also learning how good a teacher you are by seeing, you know, these sort of very self-reflective components of the CELTA. And so I was like, okay, am I actually that good at that? So it was quite balanced. And of course, then they give their feedback back and whatnot. But I remember I had I sit down with my tutor and they give you that, you know, above expectation, a general like above expectations, meeting
yes,
expectations, or subpar or
yes.
whatever, how
Below
they get rated.
expectation or something like that. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I was very optimistic about myself.
Mm.
I actually had a great confidence in lesson creation and technical stuff about lesson creation because I was really good at creating presentations and I thought that was going to kind of get me a higher mark. Actually, indeed, it did, but I never thought of the weak sides. And what's rewarding about CELTA is this: like they also show you the areas in which you need to make more improvements. Because like teachers like me who think they are really good or who think they already know enough can see uh, they're not as good as they think they are. So this is a
Mm.
great reflective course that and I all the time when I have classes with my students, I say, you think I'm a great teacher, you haven't seen anything yet. I always say that, like, don't think I'm good. You haven't seen the real ones yet. I mean, like how strong they are. They know every single point in this TEFL, ESL, TESOL, CELTA, and everything. And I felt overwhelmed, but in a good way. I was really, really positive about that.
Oh, absolutely. And coming back to what you said about the self-reflection, it is the big thing about CELTA. So if there's
Yeah.
any advice I can give to someone, it's
Yes. Please.
when the tutors give you those points to improve on, whether you agree with them or not, and I'm sure there's going to be some. Because I remember one point that I got was when it came to drilling, I was pointing at students like this, and he was saying, "Look, it was good drilling, but like when you're pointing, use an open palm, and
Yes.
it's much more inviting and less, confronting sort of thing." Um, and so, like, I was sort of thinking about it. I was like, no, that shouldn't make too much difference. And then, funnily enough, I saw a different teacher student do it. And you watch it from the outside, and you think, oh wow, oh that is actually quite aggressive. Like, and so of course that the next morning, the hour before my thing, and you know what I was doing? I was standing outside having a cigarette, just doing this just to get the muscle memory in there. Just
Yeah.
so, and sure enough, it worked right there and then. But sorry, I digress a little bit, but coming back to
It's
the
normal.
main, back to the main point. Nothing's. I mean, if I put myself in the shoes of an examiner, nothing's going to be more frustrating for me than giving someone advice and then in the very next lesson they don't do anything about it, and they make the exact same mistake. And
Yeah.
it's all about self-reflection. The thing is, you don't need to be. You could be the worst teacher in the world coming into the course. It's not about being the best teacher in the world that gets it. It's about the improvement you can make and actually reflecting on yourself and having that, putting aside that ego to say, okay, just fill me with the knowledge, tell me what to do, and actually practice doing it, and then adjust it. And it's going to feel like uncomfortable sometimes. Like I remember one of them was his advice was we'd all been given like delayed feedback, and up until the first 2 weeks, everyone's just writing the delayed feedback down in their notes, which is natural because it's natural to want to write. But then one of the tutors said, "Oh, has anyone ever tried like typing in it, like having the last slide of your presentation as like your feedback slide, and then as you're picking stuff up, quickly go and write it down, and in that way you're not wasting time like writing it on the board as you're trying to look at the scrawly notes that you've written, putting it on the board." Now that felt uncomfortable for me because I said I was a software engineer, so maybe that actually was helped me a lot with it. But there's always that nerves of like, okay, I've got to freeze the screen, I've got to go there, I've got to type it into the right column where I want it to be. And as soon as you start involving technology, it gets funny. But that
Yes.
you've got to push yourself outside that comfort zone. You really got to like, and that's part of the self-reflection. If you just stick to your comfort zone, then the thing is you need to remember about the CELTA is that these tutors, they can't like, they're not marking you themselves. They don't give you the result. They assess everything you've done, and then they have to give their recommendation to to Cambridge, right? And they have
Yes,
to
they should.
say, we think this guy deserves a pass A or pass B or whatever. So your job, the thing you can do, you just want to make it easy for them. If they can
Yes.
say, well, look, he's not the best teacher in the world, but look at this. He did X, Y, Z wrong, and by the end of his TPA, he's fixed all that. That's completely gone, and he's now an incredible teacher. Like it lends itself to the uh, what's the word I'm looking for? My apologies. English teaching. It lends itself to the whole basis of what the CELTA is.
That's true. And what would be final advice, like very quick advice for people who plan to start their CELTA? Because CELTA also is a little bit scary for many, both native and non-native teachers out there. They think it's just going to be really challenging. They think they're going to fail. But like, yeah, I've done it. I got pass B, and you've done it. You got pass A. But I'd like to know your, let's say, last advice for those who'd like to start this journey.
Be prepared. It is definitely it's definitely a slog, but it's not impossible.
Yes.
What I would say is just if you're doing especially the intensive ones that are 1 month, stay on top of everything. If you let things slip and you fall behind, it's very difficult to catch up, especially when it comes to that assignment two, the focus on the learner, like listening for the errors and things like that. Like if you've forgotten to do it during the other TPs, it's you're in a world of pain because then you're really struggling to find something
Yeah.
to pick up on. Um, but yeah, I would just say I'd say the most important thing is that self-reflective component. Listen to the advice, just
Hmm.
absorb as much as you can. Um, One major piece of advice I would give is because if you're trying to get that pass A, there's one particular. I know I've rattled on a little bit. I do apologize. There's one of those criteria that says they were able to plan lessons with very little guidance. Never,
Yes.
never, yeah, never go up to your tutor with nothing to show. Don't ever go up to them and say, I don't know what to do, or what should I do here? Always start doing it first and then ask them when you're actually stuck, because then you're coming to them more with targeted questions like, oh, I was thinking about the language analysis for this particular word, and I've realized that with this collocation, is that happening because of this intrusion or whatever it is? But you're coming to them and they can see, oh, this guy is actually pretty autonomous. They're not just coming to me with nothing to show for it so far. That's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give.
Wow. Thank you, Nick. That was amazing. I'm sure that many teachers who've watched this interview are now motivated to start this journey. And CELTA is a rewarding course. It's yeah, it was a game changer for me. And now probably very soon I'll start the Delta because I'd like to,
Ooh,
continue this journey. Yes, Delta, and I know it's like, oh my god, but yeah, it'll be amazing. Thank you very much. Very very happy to have you on this interview because people really would like to talk to those who actually got a pass A, and you made it possible for many many viewers. Thank you so much.
no problem at all, Aidan. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.